Hi everyone, my name is Tony Temple and I'm the current world record holder on the arcade game Missile Command. Can I have the first slide please, Matthew? So when you break a world record, the nice people at Guinness send you a certificate, which you can see on the left. And then you go to a frame shop and you get it mounted, and if you're really lucky, your wife will let you hang it in the downstairs toilet, which is exactly where mine is at the present time. It was the only place she let me put it. But I'm told it's where all the cool people put their records, so I guess that's okay. You get a funny reaction from people when you say, I'm a world record holder. So they start asking you whether you're like, you're a runner or you sit in a bathroom full of beans or stuff. And when you explain to them that you've beaten a 25-year-old world record on a 30-year-old video game, the reaction kind of goes one of two ways. If you're of my age, like some of you guys in your dark t-shirts, you kind of go, oh, that's really cool, Tony, tell me all about it, and you get animated and you tell them about it. But for many people, they just look at you with a puzzled look on their face. You're 45 years old and you play 30-year-old video games. So it tends to go one of two ways, and you never know how it's going to go. I tend not to bring it up in conversation, but what I find is most of my friends bring it up in conversation for me. So it's only a matter of time before people discover my dark secret. Next slide, please. So, Missile Command was written in 1979 and was released in 1980, and it was written by this gentleman here. This is Dave Toyer, who, as some of you may know, wrote Tempest, which was one of Atari's best-known arcade games. He also wrote Missile Command. This is a picture of Dave back in the day, sitting on the bonnet of his 944 Porsche. So he did okay out of Missile Command. Dave joined Atari in 1979 as a junior programmer, and he worked initially on Atari Football, which you may not have seen in this country, but Atari Football has two trackballs, one on either side, and you play American football against each other. When he finished the game, he was pulled into an office by his boss, Steve Calfee, and Steve said to him, Dave, we've got a great idea. We want you to write a new video game, and we want you to picture missiles coming in from the sky, and the player's looking at a radar screen, and he's got to shoot down all the missiles. That was the brief that he was given. The development of the game took about 9 months. What you see there, I don't know if you can make it out, but this was found in a filing cabinet when the Atari offices in California closed down. And this is the initial design document that Dave Toyer drew. And if you're familiar with the game, you can see some of the basic principles there. You can see missiles raining in. You can see a coastline at the bottom, and something that represents the missile bases there in the middle and on both sides. There's also a 2-page written document which comes with that, which makes really interesting reading. If you're keen, if you can Google this document and read the whole thing. Please, Matt. Some of the initial cabinet designs, you may not have seen these, but these are absolutely fascinating, I think. Bottom left is a conceptual piece of art which I imagine one of the graphic designers drew up when he was given the brief of what Missile Command was going to be. If you would have seen the Missile Command over there, the one thing you'll notice is different about this initial design is this enormous screen at the top here. And the initial cabinet had this great big screen at the top. But what they found was, when players were playing, they were looking at the screen and then trying to look up at this control panel to read the information from it. And what this was telling you was how far down the screen some of the missiles were. It also flashed up a light when you were low on missiles, the missiles which you shoot up. But what what they found after testing this was that players just simply couldn't get on with it, and they were finding it very difficult to read up top and also read on the screen. So as you've seen from the missile command over there, the entire thing was chopped off. Just an interesting footnote on this picture here of the control panel. We were fortunate enough to be able to put some questions to Dave Toyer about 2 years ago for Retro Gamer magazine. You may have read the article. And we asked Dave about this attract panel, and he wrote back and gave us a bit of information about it. And he just put, and I've attached a picture of it to this email, and that was the picture which was attached. What was interesting was the picture was geotagged, and it was geotagged in California. And with the information on the photo, it said it was taken with an iPhone 4. And we think, well, nobody's ever seen one of these. That picture was taken with an iPhone 4. Dave Toyer's got one of these cabs in his basement. And sure enough, it would appear Dave probably has the only prototype version of the Missile Command cabinet. I'm kind of hoping one day I'll be able to prize it away from him, but I suspect that he won't allow me to do that, but it would be great if he could. When I speak to people about Missile Command, many players say to me, I find the game too intimidating, and one of the things they find very intimidating is the control panel. The control panel, as you can see, come in two parts. On the left-hand side, you've got 3 fire buttons, which represent your 3 missile bases. And also, the defining feature of the machine is the large 6-inch trackball. Interestingly, what attracted me to the game was the trackball, and it was just something completely different. So, back in 1980, whenever it was when I played the game initially, most other machines, as you all know, have just a joystick, and you would go left and right, and you have one fire button, or you go up and down, or you go left, right, and up, down, maybe. What Missile Command represented was one of the first games to have an analog control. So if you think about your controller on your Xbox 360 or your PlayStation 3, it works in very much the same way. As you know, the further you move the controller, the quicker your character goes, or the quicker you turn around to look. It's exactly the same thing on Missile Command. It's just a very early analog controller, and much like a mouse on a computer, the faster you spin the ball, the faster you're able to move your crosshair around the screen. It's nothing to be afraid of. So the final design of the cabinet, this is what I showed you earlier, but with the big control panel at the top locked off. That was the final design of the upright machine. They also released a cabaret machine, which is probably so high. A cocktail machine, which is sit down where players play either side, so high. And then this thing. The thing at the end, as far as we know, there's only 2 of these in the UK. One of them belongs to Archer McLean, who you'll all be familiar with. And another one belongs to a chap who's here today. Not here, but he's in the room somewhere. It's called the cockpit. And essentially you sit inside it, and underneath the seat is an enormous subwoofer. Up here is a 25-inch screen, and it projects the image right in front of you. I've played one once in America, and it's just the most awesome experience you could possibly have. They only made 100 of those, so there's very few of them about. And given that they're so large, many of them were just smashed up when they came to the end of their life. So this is what was finally released. It's a relatively simple game. I don't know if you can make out here at the bottom. These essentially are your lives. This is what you're trying to protect. And these are your 3 missile bases. Dave Toyer has always been very clear that when he wrote the game, what he didn't want to do was to put the opportunity in players' hands to blow up cities. He was very keen for the game to be entirely defensive. So if you think about it, there's nothing offensive about Missile Command. It is a shoot 'em up, but actually what it's about is the preservation of your lives. It isn't just about destroying everything. And Dave was very, very clear that he didn't want to work on a game which had any kind of incitement on the whole US versus Russia thing. Of course, as you all know, the game is based on thermonuclear warfare. It was a hot topic at the time. I remember at the age of 12 and 13, as many as you guys will, in the 80s, all the discussion was about the world's going to end, we're all going to die, everything's going to get blown up by nuclear missiles. And Missile Command, I think, really played into those fears. And as a 13-year-old kid playing this game in Bristol in 81 and 82, I was playing it like I was saving the world. It absolutely played into that whole fear thing. Some of the things which were removed from the game, at one point apparently in an early version of the game, there were little trains coming out from the side of the screen delivering new missiles when your bases got low on missiles. One of the other interesting things they removed was the ability to localize the game. So in that early concept document I showed you, the cities are actually named. So if the machine was based on the west coast of America, the cities were actually named. So San Francisco, Los Angeles, etc., Santa Monica, and they also had a version for the east coast of the US, so there was New York, Boston, Pennsylvania, Atlantic City, etc. And they even had a European version where the cities were named, as you expect, London, Paris, etc., But again, they felt it was just all too complicated, and it was just a waste of code, and the operators would never set it properly, so that was all torn out. And what you see is, before you know, the pure version of Missile Command. The object of the game is to simply protect your cities from the missiles coming down. You shoot missiles up and you intercept those missiles before they come down and take out your cities. The game was received very well. Atari pumped out 14,000 upright cabinets. The document on the left, again, is an original Atari document, and it breaks down how much the machine actually cost to build. So at the top it says the main PCB was $170, the control panel was $72, the main harness was $32, the fluorescent light was $3. So to make a machine cost Atari $871. So you consider they sold about they sold them at about $2,500 times 14,000 machines. This machine alone made Atari tens of millions of dollars. And of course, that's not to mention the follow-ons. So Missile Command, as you guys will know, has been released endlessly by Atari. So it was a very key part of the golden age of video games, and it's continued to be re-released and re-released and re-released over the years. So to put a final figure on what Missile Command was worth to Atari, I couldn't even hazard a guess. But just the arcade machine made them tens of millions of dollars worldwide. The guy on the right, this is a young Steven Spielberg, believe it or not, who was a big fan of Atari games. That's his own Missile Command in his office back in the day, apparently, so we're told. So who are the players? Who are the fools like me who still choose to play Missile Command? It's probably worth pointing out at this stage that there are two versions of the game. One is marathon settings. So the world record I got took me 3 hours, and some people think that's crazy to play a video game for 3 hours. These guys, the guy at the bottom is a guy called Victor Ali. He got the original Missile Command marathon record back in 1982. He played the machine non-stop for 56 hours. So it's 2.5 days to set a world record. I just think I've got better things to do with my time. That record stood until early this year. The guy top left is a really nice guy. His name is William Carlton, and he lives in Portland, Oregon. And if any of you have seen the film High School, that's based on Will's endeavours to try and beat Victor Ali's world record, which has stood for the last 25 years. Bill has spent the last 7 years trying his damnedest to beat this world record, but every time he's failed, he's either fallen asleep, or he's forgotten his missile count, or he's lost count of his cities, or his machine has crashed. He's just failed. He's just failed to break the record. If anyone's deserved it, it's been him. The guy on the right is a relative newcomer to the scene. His name is Victor Sandberg, and he's from Sweden, and he broke the Missile Command marathon record earlier this year. I think it was in June. He scored, I think, 82 million points, and he played it for the best part of 2.5 days. Extraordinary. The interesting thing about marathon settings is, once you become pretty good at missile command, you can just keep playing, because it just becomes about getting to the next bonus city, the extra bonus life, which is applied every 10,000 points. And if you can get through a wave and you can survive it, it doesn't matter if your city's gone, because the bonus city kicks in and you just continue the game. So for me, really, marathon settings becomes a test of endurance. It's not so much a test of skill. These guys are lunatics. How they can sit there and play the game for 2.5 days, I've absolutely no idea. I thought it'd be interesting to put this up. Victor Sandberg was interviewed after he broke the world record earlier this year, and this is what he said. The shapes in the room start to move or something. It's really hard to describe. It definitely messes with your head. And I can imagine it would if you're just looking at that screen for 2.5 days. That's what those guys do. The world record I have is based on missile command tournament settings. Tournament settings is exactly the same machine, but you don't get any bonus cities. So what that means is the game is not about just getting to the next wave in order to earn your next bonus city so you can carry on playing the game, or you get the 6 cities. Once they're gone, they're gone. So your game needs to be really, really tight. One mistake and the game's all over. It's extremely frustrating. This handsome chap on the left is me. See? The guy at the bottom, oh God, Roy Schilt, Mr. Awesome, to you and me. Roy Schilt is the original missile command tournament settings world record holder. He held the record from 1984 up until 2006 when I took his score away from him. Roy is an interesting individual. He has this persona, Mr. Awesome, and he's very vocal about the world of world records and my score and his score and how he's still the true champion and I'm not really the champion. I first came across Roy when I first visited America after I broke his record, and I went there with Paul Drury, who some of you may know. He writes for Retro Gamer magazine. And we turned up at this large arcade, and guys were coming up to us and saying, "Oh, hello, nice to meet you," and one by one all these Americans. And this guy came up to us and he said, "Oh, you must be Tony Temple." I said, "Yeah, hi, how are you?" And shook his hand. And he started talking and he explained his name was Larry and he was just passing and he didn't really know anything about video games, but he thought we'd come and say hello. And I thought, well, that's a bit strange. You don't know anything about video games, but you're coming to say hello to me and you know who I am. Anyway, I won't bore you with the details, but it turns out Larry was a private investigator that Roy had hired, sent him over to Boston where we were, and he got him to scope me out, I suppose, take my photo from a distance with a zoom lens, to serve me with papers and all sorts of weird and wonderful things. It was just quite a surreal experience, really. And the harassment has never stopped since 2006. But I have an inbox with, I think the current count is 623 emails from Roy, asking me 101 different things, threatening to come to events like this, and all sorts of things. I've yet to meet Roy, but I'm quite sure one day it's going to happen, and we'll have a head-to-head, and it'll be a lot of fun. That is, if he's not shot me in the head first. The guy on the right here, this is a guy called Jeff Blair. He's a very, very good tournament player. He's currently in second place, scored just under 2 million points. Jeff plays extremely well. I've played with him head to head. He's a really nice guy, and he's a great player. So I thought it'd be interesting just to show you a bit of footage of missile command. This is from my world record performance last year. This culminated in a score of 4.4 million points. This is at about 3.4 million, I think. And as you can see, the pace is a little bit quicker than what you may have seen on some of the early screens. Basically what I'm trying to do, my own personal strategy is to try and preserve my missiles. So what I hope you'll be able to see is, rather than using one missile to shoot down one missile that's coming down, I'm looking for areas where the missiles will converge. So I can shoot up one missile to take out 2 or 3 or 4 or even more at times. You can see I'm down to my one city here. This is the city that I favour personally, here right in the middle. And it's just about survival. One mistake and the game is over. So you can be 1,000 points away from the world record. If you blow it, and you've got to start all over again. So hopefully you're able to see some examples of where I'm taking out more than one offensive missile with my defensive missiles. You see what I did there was a little spread. Many people, when they play Missile Command, they would just do an initial spread of bullets across the middle of the screen to try and take everything out. I think that's a pretty good tactic if you're starting out in the game, but eventually you'll find you're not going to get super high scores doing that, so you need to start picking things off individually. There you go, you see. Took out a satellite, and another missile came down and got caught up in the explosion. That's really what you're looking for. You're really looking for ways in which to preserve your bullets because you're going to need them. Thanks, man. This is the end screen that Dave wrote. That's what happens when your game is over on Missile Command. I think he's gone down as saying the point he was trying to make, that ultimately there are no winners when it comes to nuclear war, and everybody loses in the end. And coincidentally, that's the end of my talk. Thank you very much. I'm happy to take a question from the floor, if anybody's got.
Okay, can you hear me okay? Right, so any questions, put your hands up please. Come on.
Thank you, Sean.
It doesn't have to be about the game, you can ask Tony anything. The only thing off limits is his sex life, apparently.
Thanks for that, Matt.
Have you moved your certificate out of the toilet yet?
Yes. Yeah, my missus, God bless her. I got this thing framed, I was really proud of it. It was like a big moment for me. I come home with a certificate, all nicely framed, spent a lot of money. And we had the debate about where it was going to go. It wasn't going in the lounge, it wasn't going in the bedroom, it wasn't going in the hallway. And she somehow convinced me that whenever an actor wins an Oscar, apparently they put the Oscar in the toilet. So when the guests come round, they can have a pee into the Oscar. Apparently it's the same theory. So yeah, my world record certificate was in the downstairs loo for about 4 years. It was a good conversation piece, but I'm glad to say it's come out now and is in the games room. But I know how to answer the house. Yeah, thanks, Alex.
What's your plans, Tony, for the future as far as Missile Command goes?
Funny you, Johnson.
World record on Missile Command, are you thinking of going past 4.4 million? What's your plans for the future?
Yeah, the interesting thing about 4.4 million points, which is the highest score I've got, it took around 3 hours. It's the first time anyone's got past the kill screen on Missile Command, so much like Pac-Man and Donkey Kong, Missile Command has a kill screen. It's at wave 256. What happens uniquely is everything is worth 256 times its normal value just for that one screen. So it's really worth shooting down as much as you can because it's worth about 600,000 points, so it's well worth getting through. Nicely, what happens at the kill screen is difficulty of the game resets, but you maintain the same score. So it's kind of nice to have that breather after 256 screens of absolute chaos. When I got 4.4 million, I was playing really well, and I just couldn't see how the game was going to end. And I thought, well, it's like 2 o'clock in the morning. Well, how am I going to finish this game? Because obviously you don't walk away from it. And I kind of had it in my head that, well, maybe if I could do like a double kill screen, that would be quite interesting, and then I could just end the game and kind of walk away. Unfortunately, my middle the middle button on the control panel failed, and I pressed it to shoot something and it just went click and nothing happened, and that's how the game ended. So I was kind of pleased in a way that actually the game ended when it did, and in the way it did. It wasn't my fault, it was just a mechanical error, which as you guys all know, so you've just got to put up with that when you're dealing with 30-year-old hardware. So yeah, to answer your question, John, I would like to get to 2 kill screens in the same game. I think that would be worth about 6 million points, and then I can kind of put the whole thing to bed and finish it off. Don't ask me when I'm going to do that, because I've got no idea. But yeah, that's the plan.
You'll be doing that in Blackpool, I think.
Yeah, Blackpool, right?
How often are you playing it now? Are you playing it once a week, or to keep up your score? How often do you need to be up the top?
I got my score in 2010, and I can honestly say I didn't touch the game until earlier this year when I went to America and played at FunSpot. I genuinely hadn't played for 2 years, and I sat down and I dumped a 1.9 million point game, which was just like after serious. I guess it's like riding a bike. So bizarrely, I find if I don't play for a long time, I actually play better. Whereas if you're constantly practicing and fighting, it just all goes horribly wrong. So I don't know why, but the less I play, the better I seem to play. What I managed to do at FunSpot, much to John Stoodley's disappointment, was I managed to get to screen 253, which is just 3 screens away from the kill screen, literally 90 seconds away from the kill screen, and I fucked up. So that was a little bit annoying. I was on for a big score, so I've not really lived that one down. So yeah, I need to put that right at some point, I'm sure. Thanks guys, appreciate it. Okay. Oh.
Yeah, marathon settings, Tony. What your thoughts about going for the marathon settings your record?
Do I fancy you go? I don't know. I suppose I could be talked into it just for a laugh. Maybe I know some sort of charity do or something, but just the thought of 2.5 days playing Missile Command, it just doesn't interest me in the least. And like I say, it's bizarre because it just becomes a test of endurance. How long can you stay awake? Can you go and take a piss and run back to the machine in time? Can you grab 2 minutes kip? And it's without wanting to do down what those guys do, because I think what they do is just fascinating and really epic. But for me, it isn't really a test of skill. The guy I showed you, Victor Sandberg, who beat the marathon record in April, he's only been playing for 7 months. He's now trying to play tournament settings, and it's just completely blown his mind because he's completely having to change his game because he can no longer rely on a bonus city coming along, because you don't get bonus cities in tournament mode. So it's actually a completely different game. Someone could probably talk me into doing it, but no, not really. My wife wouldn't let me either. It's difficult enough getting up here for 2 days, let alone playing in my attic for 2.5 days. It's not going to happen.
Okay, I've just got one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any other games you'd ever try and go for a record on?
Any other game?
Any other game?
No, I am a one-trick pony. I'm absolutely hopeless at everything else. I've got 6 cabs at home. I play a reasonable game of Tempest and a reasonable game of Robotron, but clearly nothing like Missile Command.
Okay, thanks very much, Tony.
Cheers, guys.